Hello, everyone. My name is Pascale, and today I would like to share my testimony that reflects a bit more on the reading of today when we see Abraham, who finally sees the fulfillment of his promise that God has given him. Even though, like Romans 4 says, like against hope, Abraham believed in hope, contemplating his body as good as dead. And yeah, God's nature is to bind himself to his word. And so often it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. And for many of the Bible characters, it took years before it did happen, as God says. But God always does what he says he does. And so my story relating to that, goes back to 2011. A year in which I had to watch someone I deeply cared about walk down the path of turning away from God and breaking relationship with me. Had to witness him walking on a path of spiritual death, deeper and deeper into sin. But that year also, God had given me the promise that he would get his son back to him and that he would restore my relationship with him, or so I believed. I prayed, I hoped, I believed. Sometimes over the years of feeling really closer to its fulfillment, but only to be disappointed again later. I'm sure many of you can relate to that feeling. And for years, I just didn't give up. I felt like, God, you are a promise keeper, and it's your nature to be faithful, to pursue the unfaithful. And reading the story of Israel in the Old Testament is just over and over and over again, God pursues his people to get them back to himself. And so I continued to wait, and God had just made me practice growing a muscle of hope. That really is a muscle. It's not a one-time thing. It's like getting back up from disappointment and choosing to believe what God said over what the circumstances looked like, and keeping to hope against all hope in a natural sense, not because it's likely to happen, but because God is who He is. And over the years, I saw this man refuse God's invitation actually again and again, and I was like, God, don't you give up on him? I even saw him turn from being first indifferent to God, but then even turning dark into mocking God and neck deep into darkness. But God didn't give up. And in ways I don't really know, he actually did indeed lead his son back to himself, just he has promised. It took 10 years. It took 10 years, but God did it. He kept his word. And my relationship to that man has not been restored today, but I don't know if it will ever be. But I also have learned on that journey that sometimes my interpretation of God's promise to me might not be exactly what God meant, even though I might have heard words that mean something to me, doesn't always mean I interpret them correctly. Just as God appeared to, the angel Gabriel appeared to Mary saying to her, your son will be a king. And I can imagine Mary being confused when Jesus is hanging on a cross like a criminal. And yet, did God lie? No, he didn't. Just that enthroning of Jesus first happened on the cross, and now indeed he reigns as a king. So I just had to learn to open my heart to mystery, to believe God did not lie, whether or not my experience and my understanding confirms that. I also learned that some of the promises of God are conditional to to us people. And I haven't seen the part of restoration fulfilled, or at least not yet. And I do wonder if that condition was also linked to his son's desire to do so. So, regardless, and future will tell, I've learned to trust the character of God and who He says He is in His Word over my experience, and learn to embrace mystery in that. But also that, yeah, God doesn't speak lightly. Whatever He says, He binds Himself to it. And I'm just so grateful for that character trait in God in a world that people say so many things so lightly without binding themselves. So thank you, Lord, and have a blessed day.